Okay, so today we continue our lecture on vector spaces. Remember that last time we introduced the notion of vector space. What was a vector space? It was a set with two operations, a plus and a scalar multiplication, satisfying 8 conditions, basically a group of 4 concerning the addition, and a group of 4 conditions concerning the scalar multiplication. So a set with 2 operations satisfying 8 conditions. And secondly, so we gave many examples of vector space. From the smallest possible contain only one vector, okay? And the biggest, no, there is no biggest actually. It can be as big as we want, but we saw many examples, 6 or 7. Now, subspace, what is a subspace? This will be a smaller subset, and it satisfies basically 3 conditions. The first one being that the 0 vector is always in this subset, and the second being that this subset is closed by the plus and is closed by the scalar multiplication. Okay, today we are going to talk about linear combinations and spanning sets. Let me start by a definition. I consider an element of vectors, a set of vectors, so I fix here for this section vector space, R vector space with plus and scalar multiplication, and I take a set of vectors of V, then linear combination of elements of S is an element of what I will denote by this. This will be the set of some with finite number of terms of lambda I times Vi, such that all the Vi belongs to S and the lambda I are real numbers. Okay. I could write also, so what does it mean? This means something like lambda 1 V1 plus lambda n Vn. So the small n is not fixed. It can be any number of terms, but it should be finite number of terms. Okay? And they are all of the form lambda times a vector. Okay, so this is called any element, actually this is a vector as you can see. Any vector of this form will be called a linear combination of S. And this set is called the span of S. The span. The remark is that this is actually a subspace of V endowed with the plus and the multiplication. Why? Well, first of all, note that the 0 vector, it can be written in this form. Why? Well, I can write this as lambda 0 times any vector of S. So 0 vector belongs to this. This is condition S1. Now, is it closed by addition? Yeah, it's closed by addition because if you have a sum of terms like this and you add with another set of terms like this, then you will get a linear combination. Okay, so linear combination plus a linear combination is a linear combination. And it is also stable by the scalar multiplication because lambda times a scalar, a linear combination, something like this, so will be also a linear combination. Okay, so this remark is obvious. Now, yeah, let me give some examples. If we come back to R to the n, for example, then we can take as a S the set, so it's always a set of vectors, okay? So here it will be a set of n tuples. I'm going to take the following set. First of all, I take the vector with first coordinate 1 and second coordinate 0 and all other coordinates 0. Okay, this is my first vector, and then the second one I will take 0 and then second coordinate 1 and then again 0. Okay, this I call E1. This I call E2. E2, sorry, and 3 dot. The last one will be, as you can imagine, zeros only, and I finish by 1. This will be called. So how many vectors do I have? I have n vectors. Okay. So actually, this set S. So what is this? This is actually the whole space in this case. So this is R to the n. Okay, so we say that R to the n is spanned by E1 En. All right, how do you prove this? Well, it's very easy. To prove this, we just need to prove that, yeah, we just remark the following. So any vector x1, xn in the vector space R to the n, this can be written as a linear combination of vectors E1, En. Yeah, indeed, this vector is just x1, E1 plus xn, En. Okay, so this is a linear combination. So this we know belongs to this. Okay, so you can write any element of Rn as an element of the linear combinations of S. So basically, this is a kind of proof. The fact that we have this equality. Okay, not that this equality here is always true. So we just need to prove the equality in the other sense, in the other direction. And so we are doing this. We start from an element here and we show that it belongs here. Because this is always the case. Okay. Now, yeah, why is it true? Well, look at the definition of the vectors E1, En. As you can see, this x1, E1 is the scalar x1 times this vector 1, 0, 0, 0. So this is equal to x1, 0, 0, 0. Okay? And then this 3 dot, the last one being 0, 0, 0, and the last component is xn. Okay? This is by definition of scalar multiplication in this vector space. Now we know also the definition of the addition. Addition is component-wise, so you do x1 plus the first component of this one plus 3 dot the first component of this one. Okay, so here you will get finally x1 plus 0, 0, 0, 0, so x1, and then finally the last one will be 0, 0, 0 plus xn, so you will get xn. Okay, so that's why you get that x1, xn is a linear combination. Okay. Another case I want to emphasize, so another example. Yeah, so basically we take back our examples of vector space and we try to find if we have some, if they can be spanned by some fixed vectors, okay? So the second example I would like to give is V equal mat M times N R, okay? Now in this case we consider S to be, so S is a subset of V, which means that the elements of S must be some matrices with M row and N columns. I'm going to call this matrices Eij. What will be Eij? Eij is the M times N matrix with a 1 in the entry Aij and 0 otherwise. Okay, this is, I take this as a set S. Now the Ij, they varies. The I can go from 1 to n, and the j varies from 1 to n. Okay, so let me give you an example. Let's say that M, yeah, what is, for example, E11, okay? E11. E11 will be just a matrix, so you will have a 1 in the 1, 1 entry, okay? And all the other entry will be 0, so you will have this. Here you will have 0, and all the other entries will be 0. And this will be a M times N matrix. This is E11, okay? What would be E12, for example? E12 will be, so you will have a 1 in the entry 1, 2. So first row, second column, you will have a 1. So here you will have 0. Then you will have 0, and everything else will be a 0. Yeah. So this will be E12. So all together, how many vectors do we have here? So S, this S has how many elements? It has n times n vectors. So for R to the n, you remember, R to the n was spanned by only n vectors. But this is bigger. This is spanned, in fact, by n times n. So V is spanned by S. In other words, we have this is equal to this. And the proof again is just that any matrix A with entry Aij is really, it can be written as the sum, double sum on I and j, I from 1 to m and j from 1 to n, of Aij times Eij. So it's a linear combination, it's a sum of vectors of the form a scalar times one of the vector of S. Okay, so this is another example where V is spanned by a set of vectors. What about the case of polynomials? Okay, so polynomials, this would be our example 3. Now polynomials, let's take for example the set of all polynomials. Okay, that was denoted with real coefficients, so R of x. This is actually spanned by the following set of vectors. So S will be, so in this case S will not be a finite set of vectors. Here we have n times n vectors, it's a finite set, and before it was a finite set, here it's not a finite set. So basically we are going to take all polynomials which are like this, x to the power I, where I will be greater or equal to 0. Yeah. Now again, the proof that the set of polynomials is spanned by this set is the following. You need to prove that any polynomial can be written as a linear combination of vectors of S. So any polynomial, P of x, will be written like this, an xn plus a0. Let's say that a of n is not 0, so that capital N is a degree. Then how can you write this? Well, you can write this as an times this vector, okay? And then, as you can see, this is plus a0 times x to the power 0, okay? So all these are vectors of S, and this is a linear combination of S. It's a linear combination, okay? So I prove that any vector can be written as a linear combination of my vector S, and therefore this proves that the set of polynomials is spanned by this, they are so-called monomials, x to the power I. This, we can come with this definition. A vector space is called finite dimensional if it can be spanned by a finite set. A finite set. So a set with a finite number of elements. So we will call this a finite dimensional vector space. So as you can notice, we have seen that R to the n is finite dimensional. So this one was finite dimensional. Mat mn, this was finite dimensional. And be careful that the set of all polynomials R to the x is not finite dimensional. Okay. Now, I would like to see another notion, which is called the notion of linear independence. So let me start by a definition. So here we again fix this vector space V, and a set of vectors S in a vector space V with plus and scalar multiplication is said to be linearly independent if, so we have the following condition: for any V1 Vn in S, and for any coefficient scalars lambda 1 lambda n, if we have the linear combination lambda 1 V1 plus lambda n Vn equal to the zero vector, then this will imply that the coefficients, the scalars lambda I, are all zero. Okay, when this condition holds for any possible linear combination, then we will say that S is linearly independent. Okay, so let me give you an example of this. Okay. First of all, if we take S to be just two vectors, u and v, okay? Then what does it mean, S linearly independent? For two vectors. Well, in this case, when you have only two vectors, it just means that u is not lambda times v for any lambda. So they are not a scalar multiple of the other. This is the notion of linearly independent in this case. So you could say collinear. Okay, they are collinear. And another example, yeah, in R3. So if you take V to be the set of, in this case, triples of real numbers, then consider the following set. We consider E1, E2, E3. Okay, so remember what is E1, E2, E3. E1 was the triple 1, 0, 0. Then E2 was 0, 1, 0. And E3 is a triple 0, 0, 1. Okay, so this set S is linearly independent. Why is that? Why is that? Okay, so imagine that you have lambda 1. So assume. Okay, so here I'm doing the proof, in fact, proof. So assume that we have a linear combination lambda 1 E1 plus lambda 2 E2 plus lambda 3 E3, and this linear combination assumes that it is a zero vector. Okay, then what can we conclude? Well, what is this? it is equal to the 0 vector, which means 0, 0, 0. Okay? Now, the left-hand side can be rewritten as lambda 1, lambda 2, lambda 3. Now, what is it to say that this vector is equal to this vector? Well, this can only happen if lambda 1 equal lambda 2 equal lambda 3 equal 0. Okay? But this is precisely the condition that this set is linearly independent. Okay? So this is a proof. Similarly, one can prove that, do you remember the set of matrices Eij? Eij. This is a linearly independent set of the vector space of matrices. This can be shown exactly the same. And last example, which is quite important, is that, so I don't remember, what was it? Example 3 maybe? If S is linearly independent in V and S prime is a subset of S, then S prime is also linearly independent. The proof is immediate. It's very easy. So if you take a smaller subset of a set which is linearly independent, then this will be linearly independent. But in fact, we have the following test to see if a set of vectors of R to the n. So in the special example where you take a subset of this vector space R to the n is linearly independent. Okay, so what is this test? Let's call it theorem. Oh, let's call this a theorem. A set of n vectors of R to the n. So it must be the same number of vectors as this n vectors in R to the n, okay, is linearly independent if the matrix whose columns is made of these vectors as a non-zero determinant. Yeah, so you can use determinants to actually prove this, and so the proof is rather easy. So the set of vectors actually amount to check that the system of solution, so this equation, where A is as in the theorem. So you take for A the matrix with coefficients, so you put in columns the coordinates of your vectors, your n vectors. This gives you a matrix, and the solution of this must have as a unique solution. Must have a unique solution, and this happens only if the RREF of your matrix is the identity. And then, as you know, the determinant of A must be non-zero. Okay, so this is the proof of this fact. Okay, so remember, if you are in the special case where V is R to the n, and you have a set of vectors which is precisely n, then you can use this nice criterion. You just put in column the coordinate of your vector, you get a matrix n times n, and you check that the determinant is non-zero. When this happens, then you will have a set of vectors linearly independent. So far, we have seen two conditions on a subset of vectors of a R vector space. Okay, we started always from a fixed R vector space V, and then we consider today a subset of vector S, and we have seen two conditions. One condition was that this set is spanning the vector space, which means that any vector can be described as a linear combination of the vectors of this set S. Okay, this was condition one. You can describe any vectors as a linear combination of some fixed vectors. The second condition that we just studied now is linearly independent. It means that the following condition is satisfied when you have a linear combination of vectors of the set S equal to the zero vector, then it must imply that all coefficients are zero. Okay? These two conditions, linearly independent and spanning set, are completely different. But in the next section, we are going to study what happens when we have both conditions together. Okay? So let's call this basis and dimension. Okay, so I'll start with the following definition. Here again, we fix some R vector space. I'm going to use the letter B, Gothic B. This will denote some set of vectors, B1, Bn. Okay. Then we say that B is a basis for V if B is both a spanning set and linearly independent. it doesn't always happen. You can have one condition and not the other. But when you have both conditions satisfied, spanning and linearly independent, you will call such a set a basis. Basis. Theorem. Let B be a R vector space and B be a basis for V, then every vector V has a unique expression as V equal x1 b1 plus xn bn. x1 xn that you can also consider, so either the n-tuple defined by this, so here the xi are scalars of course, eh? So you can either consider this as an n-tuple or as a column vector. This is then called the coordinate of your vector V with respect to the basis B. Okay? So once you have a basis, basically you can talk about the coordinates, and this coordinate is a unique way to express your vector as a linear combination x1, b1, xn, bn. So the proof first of all, the fact that B can be written as x1 b1 plus xn bn results from the fact that B is a spanning set. This is basically the definition of being a spanning set for B. But it's not only a spanning set, it's also linearly independent. So the unicity of the writing results from linear independence of B. Why is it so? So here we can do a proof by contradiction. Okay? So assume, so we are going to prove by contradiction. You know that proof by contradiction, you will assume the opposite of what you want to prove. So here we are going to prove, we want the unicity, okay? So we are going to assume that there is not unicity, that there is two writings. So we will have V equal x1 b1 plus xn bn. But it won't be unique, okay? So we will have another writing while b1 plus yn bn. Okay, but if we have two writing like this means that if you do this minus this, you will get the zero vector because you will get v minus v, right? V minus b will be the zero vector, and this will be equal to this linear combination minus this one, which means it will be x1 minus y1 times b1 plus xn minus yn times bn, okay? And now you are using the property that this set B is linearly independent. So this implies by linear independence that actually all the scalars here must be zero. So we have xi minus yi will be zero for any I. But what does it mean? It means that in fact xi equal yi, okay? So the writing that we thought was not unique is actually unique, okay? Xi equal yi. So this is a proof. So remember, if you have the two conditions satisfied for a set in a vector space, then you can write any vector with a unique way, in a new unique way, as a linear combination x1 b1 plus xn bn, and you will call the set of these scalars x1 xn the coordinates with respect to this basis. Okay, be careful that you can have several bases and then you will have different coordinates. This is let's call this theorem 1. Okay, theorem 1. Right? Now, theorem 2. Every finite dimensional vector space V. So what it means finite dimensional, you remember, it means that it is spanned by a finite set of vectors. So let's call them V1, Vn as a basis. This set, so any finite dimensional vector space will have a basis B with n less than m. So yeah, sorry. So here it will be Vm, okay, and it will have in fact a basis with a lesser number of vectors, okay, n. Let's call it n. The proof of that, well, first of all, step 1. If your spanning set V1 Vm is linearly independent, then it is a basis, okay? And you can take n equal n, right? So B is the basis. You are finished. Now, otherwise, what do you do? So, if it's not linearly independent, okay, V1, Vm, not linearly independent, then there exists a linear dependence relation between these vectors. Okay, so that some vector Vj can be written as a linear combination of the set V1 Vm where you have removed this Vj. So you can express one vector in terms of the other. This you will call this a linear dependence relation for Vj. Okay? And then what do? Well, first of all, because this vector can be expressed in terms of the other one, it means that the set where you remove this vector, you remove it, this will still span V, okay? But you have one vector less, okay? So you can rename then V prime 1, V prime M minus 1. So this time you have M minus 1 vector. And then you go to step 1 again. Step 1, so you check that they are linearly independent. If they are linearly independent because they are also spanning, they will form a basis. If they are not, then it means that one of the vectors has a linear dependence relation, and then you remove this vector, etc., etc. Now the process will finish because we started from a finite number of vectors, and each time either it is a basis, either we remove one vector. So at the end we will end up with maximum 1 or 2 vectors, one vector. And one vector, if it's spanned, then it's also, one vector is always linearly independent, by the way. So remark that if S is only one vector, then, so be careful that this vector must be non-zero, so then such S is always linearly independent. Just have a look at the definition of linearly independent, and you will see that you must have, if there is only one vector, it's automatically satisfied, okay? So basically, you follow this algorithm. Each time, potentially you remove one vector. At the end, you will end up maybe with only one vector, and it will be necessarily linearly independent, so you will end up with a basis, okay? Okay, so this is the proof of theorem 2. Now, let's see theorem 3. Okay, so theorem 3, let V be a finite dimensional vector space. Every two bases for V have necessarily the same number of vectors, which this number will be called the dimension of V. of that, it's very simple. You apply twice theorem 2 to the order n1 of your basis 1 and n2 the order of basis B2, and you get necessarily conditions that n1 will be less than n2 and n2 will be less than n1, so that n1 must be equal to n2. Okay, so it means that if you are given a finite dimensional vector space, I remember, be careful, do not be confused with finite dimensional and dimension. Okay, finite dimensional just means that you can span your vector space by a finite set of vectors. Okay, now what I say here is that when you have a finite dimensional vector space, then you can have several bases. Okay, you can have many bases, but they will always have the same number of vectors, all these bases. Okay, and this number of vectors will be called the dimension. That's it. Just an example of that. Well, yeah, obviously R to the n is of dimension n. You see, this is of dimension n because E1, En is a basis. Okay? Now you can ask yourself, for example, what is the dimension of this one? As dimension, okay? And for example, this one has infinite, this has infinite dimension. Why is that? It's, as we have seen, a basis for that. So the set of all polynomials of the form x to the power I, where I is any integer greater or equal to 0. So there is an infinite number of such vectors, and this is a basis. So as you can see, this is a basis, okay, but there is not a finite number of them, okay? So this is infinite dimensional. All right. Now, we can go from one basis to the other, okay? How do we do that? Change of basis. Okay, so to do that is quite simple. So we start from V in R vector space, and we are given two bases, B and B prime. Okay, so the first one will be B1, and let's say that it is finite dimensional. Finite dimensional. Okay, so here, for sure, we know that we can have two bases, but they will have the same number of vectors. So here I will have n vectors, b1, bn, and another basis will have some vectors b prime 1, b prime n. Okay, but the main point is that this is necessarily the same number of vectors. If you fix a basis, remember that you will have some coordinates. Okay, so sometimes you want to write in different coordinates. And how do you do that? So let C be the matrix whose columns are the coordinates of vectors of B prime with respect to the basis B. Okay, then C is called the change of basis matrix from B to B prime. The fact is that this matrix is always invertible with inverse. So the inverse will be the change of basis matrix from this time B prime to B. All right? Now, if you start from a vector written with the coordinates with respect to the base B, so you know that V will be a finite sum. Well, here the dimension will be n, so you will have a summation for I equal 1 to n of xi bi. And if you want to know the coordinates of this same vector, but this time with respect to the base B prime, you will just do C minus 1 times x1 xn, and this will give you the coordinate x prime I, x prime 1, x prime n, such that V will be equal to x prime 1 b1 plus x prime n bn. Okay, that's right.